This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome, everyone, to The Wandering Mike. Today, I'm here with Matt. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Good, thanks, Mike. How are you?
Good. I'm looking forward to this talk. It's going to be pretty interesting, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, just to get us started, if you could tell me a little bit about yourself, what makes you you, what's your background, what's been happening?
Yeah, so I'm 38 years old, born in Christchurch. I'm New Zealand Māori and English and Scottish mixed
Oh,
together.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, and I've lived here off and on. I've lived overseas too, and yeah, I'm a sort of person that just does a lot of different things. So I'm sort of always all over the show, but not.
Right.
But yeah,
I'll hope we can get into a lot of the things that you do
yeah,
that you
yeah.
like. If you want to start with childhood, if there's something or anything you want to tell about that, or you don't want to tell, how was that like? And looking back now, how do you think it influenced you becoming who you?
Yeah, I look at my childhood. I have a really early recollection of being like I was in like a bassinet and I couldn't walk, and so that's my earliest
Oh,
memory. So I had a really good memory from a very young age, and I didn't grow up with my mother or father. I grew up with my grandparents, and they were Catholic, and I got special education. In that they were both teachers, and
mm,
not special education because I needed it, but just it was a sort of a training thing that I went through as a child that I look back on now as it up throughout my life, it made me angry. It made me
mm,
upset about my childhood. But now I'm come to a
right,
place where I realize that it's made me who I am, and who I am is who I'll get into, I guess.
right. Maybe if you do want to tell a little bit more about that, because it's interesting to me, what was that kind of special education? What was it you were like brought up with?
And so my dad is Māori, and so I didn't grow up with him. I
Mm.
grew up with my grandparents who are English and Irish, and so they brought me up in a special way where I had a lot of horticulture, growing plants, nature, and taught a lot of different things. Up until the age of about 6 or 7, everything was very, very happy for my childhood
Yeah.
until part of what I was doing is I was part of a trial thing was I got given a whole lot of medications and drugs
Oh, okay.
that enhanced my thinking but lowered something in my body. And I was on them till I was for 3 years before I went overseas.
Right.
And when I was overseas, I did an apprenticeship. I went over to Australia
Mm.
and I became a carpenter. It's just like a rough outline. I became a
Right.
carpenter. And then I was in prison for many years, between
How many?
probably about 7 all up.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
long time to be taken from someone like. Can imagine like 7 years in prison. That must have been
Yeah. It was bad and it was good. Uh,
right.
silver linings on something like that.
I'd love to get into that more later if
Yeah.
you don't mind. I think that would be very interesting. So that horticulture thing, though, just to keep that chronologically,
Yeah.
because you said Maori, and we talked about some of the Maori traditions as well with you. I forgot the word, but the bird you're building at the
Oh, yeah.
moment,
The
like,
morbid. Yeah.
yeah, what is the technique called? What you do with the twigs?
Oh, yeah, it's weaving and fidget, and it's taught from a young age just because of the logic of over, under, over, under, and
Right.
repetitive, and then switch to another angle, and it helps some part of your thinking keeping a logical sort of scene.
All right. So that was part of it too.
Yeah,
Oh,
but it was using nature, so it's fused nature with that sort of thinking, and so
right.
because when I grew up, my grandparents had a huge garden. They won
Oh,
awards, flowers, and it was just
oh, nice.
really a green sort of upbringing. But that's my grandparents taught me how to germinate flowers and grow them and do all sorts of things like that. So that was sort of what I got from them at a young age.
Right. And so then you got into carpenting. Carpenter?
Carpenter,
Carpenter.
yeah, Or when I was 10, I went over to Australia.
When you were 10?
Mm,
Oh, that
yeah,
sounds like an adventure with
it,
10.
it was, yeah, yeah. And
Did you go there all by yourself, or did you have
I went there,
anyone there?
yeah. I went on my own, but my mother lived over there, my
Oh,
stepfather.
alright.
So I went and stayed with them for 4 years till I
Right.
was 14, and that's when I started working.
Alright. So, yeah, let's because I find that timeline already very interesting. I can't wait to talk about that in more detail. Let's go with some more questions first, though. So, on my podcast, we always talk a lot about dreams.
Yeah.
So, what is a dream or maybe just a goal that you're currently working towards? What's your dream?
My dream is I'm a really different sort of thinker, and so I really want
Right.
to shift thinking in the society that I live in, shift
Hey,
minds from, I just see how things impact in a macro scale. And so I want to influence society enough to make a change. And that's why I went to university too. But
right.
I'm a person that wants to implement different things to help change the world, speak to everyone. Yeah.
That's very cool. And we're definitely, if you want to, talk about your time at university as well, because we already chatted a little bit about that. And I think that's interesting as well. With that dream or goal of yours, which might some say is a quite like big dream, it's probably a very hard thing to accomplish. Um, in this world we're living in, a world full of distractions,
Mm.
what is something that keeps you like grounded to that dream to not forget about what you want to do?
Mainly it's to do with, drugs and drug wars and drug legalization.
Right.
And so I'm a person that I function and I used to smoke marijuana and do other things. So I want to implement that sort of change. That's the sort of thing that I think that society has turned itself up on its head. And, there's all these dark avenues now because of making drugs illegal.
Definitely.
And I've written papers at university about, because I wanted to even bring, make morphine and everything decriminalized, bring it out, because stuff when it's out in the open to everyone is more knowledgeable for what the effects rather than everyone diving into the deep and trying all different sorts of things and
Yeah.
getting all different types of things. It really harms society. Yeah.
I actually find that a very interesting topic myself. And maybe we can pause here actually for a second and take some minutes to talk about that. Maybe talk about what you worked on in university there as well, if you just want to give us a little insight, because I don't know if I told you, but before I came here, I was working in Portugal, and coming from Germany to Portugal, it was also very different because in Portugal, they actually have a very liberal drug
Mm,
politics.
mm,
Like everything is decriminalized. They actually, nothing is criminal anymore. But if you have possession of certain things, they rather put you in psychological care and they
mm,
put like say you have to go to a therapist and you're going to work through is the use I'm doing a healthy one or is it maybe not and just trying to figure those things out. But they did as a result of a heroin crisis that they had in the 1990s. They did decriminalize all drugs. And having lived there, I do feel like that system works much better than the one in Germany. I mean, now actually marijuana is legal in Germany, but it wasn't when I came to Portugal. So back then, I believe that system just worked a lot better. So
yeah.
yeah, maybe take us into some of your insights on the topic.
Yeah. I used Portugal when I was doing my thesis
Oh
as
yeah,
as part of the comparison
right.
comparative measures, and there was also other places like Ireland is
Oh,
going the same way. Got Mexico,
well, yeah.
other places in the world that have all liberalized their drug policies.
Mm,
And because in my life, my life's been heavily impacted by drugs, like, of my jail and everything. And it's
right,
taken a lot of my years of my life. So I was like, well, I'm going
right.
to put myself into trying, because I have a hands-on approach to understanding that sort of thing. And so at university, I focused mainly on opioids and amphetamine because they were higher class drugs, but just
Right.
showing that it's not this crazy idea that everyone gets in the head, because we do live in a society where everything's about our attention. And, so when someone
Right.
has a predisposed idea, hey, using this drug turns you into a zombie, or using this drug turns you into an absolute maniac.
Hmm.
They have these two ideas, but it's the liberal approach of coming in and just saying, this and that, there's ups, there's downs, but everything like in life is a sacrifice. Doesn't matter what we do, put in our bodies. It gives us an enhancement or it doesn't. Right. Everything has an effect on us. And when I did my paper at university, I focused on the economic side of, because that's a really numbers approach. Okay, economically, if we decriminalize this, stop Pamulas would not, because I did sociology as my major as well. So I branched into criminology. I showed the different instruction of, okay, this is how it'll affect this flow, this part, and we'll be able to save here. And then I said, and not only that, it makes society not so dark. Like having a society where there's a real deep underculture makes it a very cold society. People are scared to talk
Yes.
to each other, and when it's a warm society and everything, and that's how I was trying to show as well. Using things like, sorry about that.
But making things taboo, yeah,
Yeah,
rarely works, like in any
yeah.
kind of situation.
I used the opium wars in China as the first time in history, in recorded history, that something was prohibited on a large scale, and how undercurrent effects of it being prohibited, it was hugely negative on the Chinese people. They went from, and then it opened up the branch to the whole world to try and smuggle it in, because there was a huge economic side. And so we've got Britain fighting India over who's going to smuggle in opium. So there's causing deaths there. People are
Right.
neglecting their society to try and make all this money from this law. And so it shows, and I tried to use that as a comparative measure when I did my paper, but I ran into backlash with, because at universities is where, all our social policies are all created.
Right. Yeah.
And that's, then it's fed to Parliament. Parliament goes out and they push it off, and people now become social and qualitative sort of thing. And so when I was with the professor of criminology and he was taking me through my thesis, he told me not to do it. He said, don't do that. It's just, because he spent his whole life making laws to make drugs illegal.
Right.
So when I presented my paper, and this was after a year of research, I got failed. He didn't even read it. He didn't like the idea because of when everything he said. Yeah,
I actually,
but I ended up getting passed. But because I got to reassess everyone's like,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, because obviously you can't just fail someone because of your personal opinion.
yeah,
But that's something I find very interesting because, especially in philosophy and, or I don't know, criminology is kind of a subpart of that, right? Like of the philosophy, or is it more like the sociology?
I sociology, criminology is a part of the sociology branch.
Right.
Philosophy underpins everything that you take. I took the main branch of philosophy I focused on was ethical and moral philosophy,
Right.
because that supported me and my ideas of what's right and wrong when I was trying to take it into society with sociology, because sociology is just the knowledge of society. And a lot of the people at university will gain the knowledge of society through a book, but I'd lived it already. So
So you already have a lot of advantage
yeah,
against all these other people.
yeah,
But yeah, the question I actually wanted to ask here though was, because obviously universities is like their own kind of bubble, right? It's the
yeah,
whole academic bubble. And obviously they have like academic thoughts and they have like their own point of view on a lot of things. So like you already mentioned, that is something you also really encountered, right? That anything that goes against those point of views is not really objectively looked at, which
yeah,
is a huge problem, isn't it?
yeah. It's a problem when people get stuck, because we live in, there's a Buddhist saying that, and there's a, um, and Buddha says it as well, that nothing is permanent, everything is flowing. And so usually if someone gets stuck in, or something in society gets stuck in a branch of, this is the only way and this is how we're going to do it, and it's punishment for using this, and then they can't stop people using it and they make it illegal and having it. So when they do that sort of thing, and it just, they get stuck in a way of thinking and society won't move.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
society has to always be flowing, even if it's in a snail pace, but it has to change some way. Yeah.
It really does. Yeah, and I don't know. For me personally, it feels like the last couple of years we were very stagnant. Not a lot of things have actually moved in either direction.
And I think it's after the COVID big lockdowns, everything like that. Internationally, everything sort of shut down and everything's sort of slowed down. But New Zealand has an attitude, a social attitude of just putting up with the things that happen to us. Something bad happens, we adapt to it
Right.
like that. But things that, yeah, not too many people speak up. Not like in America, you got people like the Civil War and, black people stood up for their right.
Yeah.
We're lucky here in New Zealand because the Māoris do have quite a fair bit of rights in that when it comes to society in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly don't know anything about that. Maybe a little bit, but
Yeah.
I don't really know anything about the political things. But since I came here, I also had the impression from the people I talked with that from the countries that were colonized, New Zealand actually made a relatively good deal. With all colonizations, it's always forced upon you, obviously. That's
Yeah.
part of the thing. But I feel like New Zealand had had a pretty good way of eventually coming to terms with in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah. Even when the British colonized New Zealand and then you had the Anglicans and the Protestants fighting, and there's old cemeteries here, Christchurch, and they had sides of cemetery, society
Oh,
splitting in.
right.
So then you've got the Native people fighting with the English, and then the English fighting amongst themselves. Yeah. I guess I talk about that sort of thing because it's had a big impact in my life, but it's not necessarily shaped who I am, but it's just, uh,
Right.
but these two rings I wear, there's paganism and there's Catholic, it makes what made me up, views of life.
If you wouldn't mind going into more detail on that, maybe, because I would think that my viewers are probably they know what Catholicism is, but maybe not everyone knows about paganism. Could you tell us a little bit about that culture? Like,
Yeah. So it's just being one with our nature, which is a simple concept, but it's hard for a lot of people to grasp. With the fight between Catholicism and paganism, and then there's a demonization, which they made pagans out to be witches. The pentagram, the 5-star pentagram with the circle,
yeah,
that's just a person. The arms, the legs, that's not demonic at all. And
so
so,
that's what it symbolizes, actually. Five,
yeah, it symbolizes a person has 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head
right?
standing, and so eventually the painting too. They had
And also
purchased,
used,
yeah,
yeah, that's right.
of Michelangelo, yeah, or Da
Ye-
Vinci one. No, Da Vinci was Da Vinci, but
I think
yeah,
it was, yeah.
but it's that point of view that Catholics and which is the society in New Zealand is highly influenced by. Had taken on the view of not looking at something and demonizing it, and made it frictional in society. Because when I look at like trees, and when I look at leaves and plants I've never seen, they all have medicinal properties. Every single one has some sort of use that comes up out of the ground. No one really knows what they are. Mushrooms,
Yeah.
everything has a special use for us because as humans in our bodies, we're made from the earth. And so being one with the earth is just understanding the world as like an organism, like and its ecology of a understanding that there's the lungs and the heart and everything's got parts. Yeah. Nature.
Do you have an opinion on that? If not, that's also fine. But I also feel like, especially in Western medicine, New Zealand being close to Asia, maybe it's a little different because in Eastern medicine, it's different. But especially in Western medicine, it's not really, it's pretty looked down upon, like you said, using herbs and like natural plants for medication. And you have an opinion on why that is?
Yes, so there's uh, Christchurch, especially, and New Zealand society. I guess it's really bad here in Christchurch. Have a really down view on anything to do with anything that's mind altering, even though they would be. So my grandparents would be right against free smoke marijuana, and they did, I quite bring that up around them. But I know that when I smoke it regularly, for my pain, for my nerves,
Yeah.
for calming down my muscle, and I use it in a way that it makes me one with nature.
Right.
Um, Not in a way that, "Oh, I'm looking for a good time, I want to."
Yeah. How it's often portrayed. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's not a good time to me, it's just life, and
Yeah.
if I didn't have it, I'd find something else, but it's just
Because you need to take care of the pain.
yeah, yeah, until I guess because 'cause I've got had a lot of surgeries, I've had a lot of pain in my life, and so drugs like marijuana or opioids even, which are used in hospitals, morphines and
Right.
all that for when people have surgeries, but
Yeah.
they're still demonized. The connection to society is when it's called morphine and heroin, and all of a sudden the brain is heroin
Right.
makes everyone a heroin addict, got morphine addict, like old people and that everywhere.
That's a great point. Yeah. The marketing.
Yes, it's the word. It's in
Yeah.
the linguistic saying, calling it heroin makes automatically, when I think of heroin, I think of some zombie on Netflix. They're going to,
Yeah.
walking around and, or someone dying of a needle in their arm. But
Yeah.
everything has a good use, everything has a downside. It's about balance, in society, especially. But that's what this is, and especially in Western society, and Christchurch itself has got a really, really, really strong Catholic, even in the name, Christchurch.
Yeah.
It's
Definitely.
very strong religious views, and so it's like hard. I walk around and I liberally smoke marijuana wherever I go because I don't look at it, and because I don't
Yeah.
look at it as I'm doing any crime. I'm going crime. I can have a good conversation. I'm intellectual. I can read a book. I don't sit here going, yeah, don't go around.
Exactly.
I make it normal for me because I know that that makes other people comfortable as well. Because I know there's other people that hide it in this society. So I try and radiate that out.
That's a great point.
Mm,
Like, if you yourself would kind of demonize it by hiding it,
mm,
it would take part of the message away, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
you just
yeah, yeah, yeah. As you say, it's demonizing it yourself. Um, that controls your worldview. We live in a paradigm that's controlled by laws and physics that we have. Our cosmology already set in us from when we're young, and people that aren't aware of what their cosmology is, what their cosmology is. People don't know what cosmology is. It's just our beliefs, our concrete beliefs that make up how the universe came to be. Because we have to understand where we come from in order to know where we're going to go properly.
yeah.
And so it's quite a deep subject.
I'm there for it.
Yeah, but that's how I see things.
Yeah. I feel like, and maybe since we already talked about your criminology paper, let's stick with your university time for a little bit and go into the philosophy part of it. Because as you've just mentioned with the cosmology, I feel like it would do everyone, and especially the whole humankind, a lot of good to really concentrate on these kind of questions a lot more. Like, where do we come from? And
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
think about it to make a like intellectual or like at least informed decision about where we want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like that does not really happen a lot in daily life in your daily
Mm.
society.
No, I think the problem that has happened is as we've evolved and we make things easier for ourselves, it's taken away part of our social connection to each other. And then, so we're making decisions about a lot of things out of ignorance, playing the full card. We're crossing out arms and legs and just sitting there thinking, but I wouldn't go and kill a cow, hang a cow, but I'll
Right.
eat a burger because I'm ignorant of where it's been or who's done the job of killing it and that. But am I really? We're all separate. We're all separated out, and everyone's using their phones to connect, and it's taking away what we need is in social interaction as social beings. Yeah,
Yeah. That's a big part of it too, right? Is the social part of it because people used to communicate about these things. It was like people went out on the streets, they talked to people, they were
yeah,
like, so what do you think life is about? What do you think? Like they just had conversations about it, sparking the minds. And
yeah.
with that being taken away and people being less social, these conversations don't really naturally happen anymore. Well,
No,
not as often at
not
least.
as often. Yeah, and it's like people can live intertwined in different bubbles and not have any communication or talking to each other at all. But things like going to cafes and meeting up and talking and socializing and meeting other people and having just talk on a Sunday or something.
Yeah.
Um, local pamphlets and papers that are handed out, and it's all sort of going to the wayside, and
Yeah.
because everything's so digital, and I respect the digital way of life. I I don't know what I'd do without my phone. I've had no phone for some time at times, and just checking my bank account balance,
Right.
saves me time having to go down and walk down to the ATM, and
Yeah.
but everything's about a balance. Yes.
That's what I just wanted to say. It's just, it comes together to the same thing. This technology is so helpful. It makes our life a lot easier if you know how to use it, if you restrain yourself to only use it for these things. But
Yeah.
then again, it can take away so much things if we let it distract us, if we let it like get us into this all scrolling marathon and just like, oh,
Yeah.
what 2 hours passed? Oh, this food looks so great on
Yeah.
my
Yeah. I'm
Instagram.
guilty of just scrolling marathon, sitting there just going through things, and then it does. Time disappears, and you've got to the end of it. And usually, the stuff that I've gone through is quirky, but it's not necessarily taught me anything. It's just been dead
Right.
time. I'm not a person who likes to learn something a lot of the time, but there are good things about going on your phone too. Being able to have the access to Google, and just become so popular now. So everything's just not be stored in your own memory. It's like, oh, just go to Google.
Yeah.
So, Google this, Google that.
Which I personally also think, obviously, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But then again, it also takes away that social part because people were like, oh, yeah, Einstein was saying this and that. And then someone else says, oh, no, I don't think he did. I think he's a. And you could discuss things, you could discuss opinions like for hours. And now someone just says, oh, let me Google it.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
whole discussion is
Yeah.
basically dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And the thing is with Google, a lot of the time information is correct. But
yeah. And that's the whole other thing was obviously if you're a company who is in charge of distributing information, obviously you're going to use that to distribute information that you want to distribute.
yeah, I mean, marketing as a tactic to grab people's attention is huge in society. I reckon I would have made a great marketer. That was actually something I wanted to do, was do marketing.
Yeah.
But just because I know how to grab people's attention, and it's a lot to do with colors and words, and like you have like little ads and that stick in your head, and they go round and round, and forever you remember the little jingle. You
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you are a pretty artistic person as well, like a very creative person. So I always feel like if you have that kind of thinking, because it is a different mindset of like, let's just generalize. I don't really like to generalize, but your factory worker, your 9 to 5 worker, they see life differently as a creative person. We go and we just think about things in a different way. And I think this is something that, especially for marketing, can also be very advantageous because you just already think about things in a different kind of way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, that's thinking of things in different ways is perspective shifts. I mean, I try and do that on everything. Not necessarily take a firm position on anything, but
Yeah.
just sort of, that's what, and it comes up a lot is, I see with people, they have their view on something, but they can't expand it to other people's views.
Yeah.
Big in in this society, where it's quite segregated and multicultural, but that's
It's a sad kind of topic
it is a sad topic.
to,
But when I think of that cultural shift when I went from Australia, I grew up, I did my training, my schooling and everything.
right.
And then I came back here as a teenager, and I walked down the street with an Aussie attitude. And the attitude was, hey, I'll go and walk, because I'd walk up the street, see someone having a drink on their store tip, and I go, hey, you're puffing.
Right.
And just start, I'd take, well, I did that, walked up the street here in New Zealand, saw some guys, I went, hey guys, walked up, and they punched me in the face. because it's territorial, and it's a different attitude, and it was like I'm on their territory, how the fucking dare I? And I ran out the house, and I ran out, whoa, whoa, what the fuck's going on?
Wow.
Like, who are you? And I was like, hey, yeah, sorry, and I walked back home, and I'm like, people here are just still very angry. And there were people like other Māori guys, young guys like me. I was 16, and yeah, it's just I find that the cosmopolitan society here in Christchurch doesn't exist. Not like it doesn't in, say, Australia. But yeah,
So you have that direct comparison, which not a lot of people probably have, to have two or even more countries that they can actually compare with each other. So, in your opinion, because as you said, not everything is just bad and just good, right?
no,
Do you believe there's also something that the New Zealand people do better, whatever that means, in some sort of way than maybe the Aussies?
yeah, that working,
Working.
and working it's a big broad thing, but
Right.
there are good Aussie workers, but New Zealand for some reason I've always worked with hard working.
Oh,
Everyone's always been a hard worker. It's like Kiwis, and it's just
right.
I think it's a Kiwi thing. But everyone in every culture has hard workers there, and I know there is not hard workers in New Zealand culture, but I think it's but and I guess just the Māori people have a way of standing up for themselves,
Yeah.
and so like compared to Australia, where the Aboriginal people aren't at all recognised. They don't answer the news and say hello in Aboriginal. I wouldn't even know how to say hello in Aboriginal because it's not
Right.
recognised in the schools. It's not recognised. And so then the Aboriginal people are old, ancient people, and they're not respected for being who they are. They're also demonised. And so it's, and that's worth, but then the culture that there's more warm, it's a nicer culture. And I don't know if that's something to do with the weather always being nice and hot, but
But maybe,
yeah,
maybe it does. I believe that that can have a great impact on
mm,
people's moods, especially me seeing Germany and then compared to Portugal, where it is just a lot more sunny and the
yeah,
people
yeah.
are just more out there enjoying their lives, or on the street, talking to each other,
Yes,
drinking with
yes,
each
yes,
other.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
it can have, in my opinion, like a big
yeah.
part to do with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You would have seen a lot. It would have just the big shift between cultures, I guess, and you would have felt it as well in a way.
But that other point you said, that really is something that New Zealand is pretty good at, because you walk around here, Auckland, anywhere in New Zealand, always read Maori.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
always on there as well. Like
yeah,
everyone knows Kiora. It's like
yeah, yeah.
that really is something that they're not forgetting. They're really not
And
putting it
and
down.
and look on the notes the New Zealand money, and it's got korus, which is a repeating twirl like that, which is
Right.
also a DNA sequence. But in our culture, we have things in our culture that seem repetitive and primitive, but they're actually the building blocks of who we are. And I think we recognize because we understand that as a
Right.
Māori people, we understand that we all carry DNA and we all carry ways of remembering who we were and who we are. And we have a really good way of doing that. And our culture, even like Robbie Williams, he's got a Māori tattoo on him.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, I myself am a tattoo artist. Tāmoku, I do New
Right.
Zealand. But famous people, David Beckham's got Māori tattoos. Internationally, our art is recognised and it tells a story. It's not just a piece of drawing. It tells a story when we do art as Māori people. Like when I wear it and I do sticks and that, I put my ideas into it
Yeah.
and I treat it like a body. And I do that with my ideas as well. And I know that's quite a far out topic to try and think about, but it's something that our culture, Māori culture, the Naka is good at, and that's why I think we respect it and we have a way of tapping into Earth's energy, and it's natural to us. It's not outlandish, like spooky or anything. It
Right.
might look spooky. People might think that I'm probably unwell sometimes. I need to sit with nature. I need to,
Yeah.
and I get, and because I am part of nature. It's what makes me. My DNA is made of.
We all are.
Yeah, we all are made
We
of it.
all
We all
are.
come from the earth, and so um, I really understand and have always understood how important it was. And I look at the world in a natural perspective, but also taking on everything that happens in everyday life. Is and I try and because we're fine with me in the way that I am, and I weave most days I weave or I draw, I do something artistic to create capture a thought and a moment and a memory,
Yeah.
and I do it and I put it in art, and whatever that is, I also play the guitar and I sing and I write a song or I do something, but putting that in, that's what I feel comes naturally to our cultures. We naturally can artistically create things that if I can't express something in words, I will express it in weaving plants
Yeah.
or drawing. Because sometimes my ideas and the concepts that I have aren't able to be spoken about, if you know what I mean. Because
Mhm.
we also have a social norm to
Yes.
abide by, and so I start saying things that are off chart, and all of a sudden, this guy's a bit mentally unwell. It's not. But there's a quantum way of looking at it. We've got things in different cultures. Yeah, horticulture, we look at different gods and the energy because but it's in science, you got quantum. They look at the metaphysical world because they know that everything has another existence where we get energy from, energetic world. And that's natural to anyone. It's not like a super skill or superpower. Everyone that comes from the earth
Yeah.
naturally can reconnect with the earth um, energetically. And I'm sort of spiraling with the conversation a little bit.
No, I love it. I love it. At this speed, we probably be talking for days, but
Oh,
I really find it interesting, especially the Maori topic for me is very, very interesting. And the things you said, I believe, can be very like those are good things for any kind of society. Knowing your roots, being
yeah,
connected
yeah,
to the nature from which we all come from, with knowing that we are just the same energy and that maybe I'm interpreting too much, but also the creative part of it being, yeah, we're here by nature, and then we want to give back to nature by also creating something ourselves, right?
yeah,
So all these things make, in my opinion, a would make a very good society if more people like stood on these values.
mm, yeah, yes. I mean, taking a look like that, it is, and it's I guess the first place to start is with my own thinking. It's always try and um, radiate my thoughts. Sometimes I do
Right.
it, in art and that, but yeah, yeah, you're definitely right.
Um, yeah, but that was a good talk about the Maori culture. I don't know if there anything comes to mind that you want to talk about there as well, because I actually do find it interesting, like the whole traditions and just yeah, to see the values that the society stands on in contrast to a lot of other societies that we have, especially in the West. Yeah. Um, originally, we wanted to talk about philosophy.
Oh yeah,
So, um, you said moral and ethical philosophy, right?
yeah.
Was where you really were into. Um, maybe just tell us what is it that is most exciting to you about those topics? What is your interesting part?
It's and it ties into everything when we're talking about it. It's understanding um, and that right and wrong. There is no such thing as right and wrong. It's all a very
Right.
subjective experience and perspective shift. And that's what I've had to come. And philosophy, it's taken me a while, but I had to come to terms with, okay, something is made normalized by a society, but it starts, and nothing is concrete university right or wrong,
Yeah.
and looking in people's different philosophies, especially Immanuel Kant is probably the philosopher that I believe is one of the greatest philosophers. He's got it's a series called Deontology, and it's a duty-based ethical theory where human behavior is done not because and it ends. So I don't treat you as a mean to get what I want. I treat you as an end in itself. So when I make a decision, it's out of my duty to you as a human being rather than what I can get out of you.
Yeah.
And that's how something simple like a cog like that stuck in changes the whole outlook of society, because then all of a sudden one becomes a friend that actually is looking at I sometimes I've only got a few good friends in life. So you can't always call up someone who you only just say you meet someone your friend. You can't just call, hey, tell me about, hey, because all people want something out of it. You come, I need a jump start. My car's broken down, or and so when society becomes about, it's like a difference between being survival mode, where you're it's all about what I can get or about what I can give, because I'm seeing the world in a bigger perspective. Like it's not all about me surviving. It's about us.
Us. Yes. That's
Us. It's about not us surviving. No, it's about us experiencing
yes.
and pleasurable things. Not stuff that's things. There's always going to be some sort of in life. There's always going to be a sacrifice in our existence. It's metaphysical, and it's a way of seeing everything as negative and positive, night and day. Everything is constantly sparking backwards and forwards, and it's what quantum physics says. We're both alive and dead at the same time, using energy consumption, and we're built up and then we come down. We're like, rise up and down. We get old. We're like on a linear thing, and so we need, as society, I've always had a look. Like I don't think about myself. I think more in a look of the broad spectrum of how people need to treat each other, and that's the moral philosophy that I study quite a fair bit into, and it's quite a popular. He was in the 16th century philosopher, I think, so it was a long time ago.
Yeah. I read some Kant in school as well, but not in too much detail. But we discussed like his main works. Um, Maybe just to play devil's advocate here, something like this philosophy, obviously, if you're not a cynical person, it does sound very good, right, in theory. But do you actually believe that it is something we could actually implement in society?
Yeah, I do. Because I know that there's a thing that says, there's a saying goes, there's a cat in a box and there's poison and there's food.
Right.
You leave the cat in the box for 7 days. What do you think's happened to the cat? And you think, well, the cat will drink the poison and die, but it's not. That hasn't happened because we live in an observer-based reality. It doesn't happen until we observe it.
Till we actually open the box.
Yeah, to open the box. And I know that sounds stupid. It's like, well, the book, but everything in my reality that I see and I vision in my 360 curriculum, that is under my control. So it's like I have to start with myself. I can't think of these theories and then try and force other people to do it. I have to adopt it myself first and then act it out and see, because it's quite easy if because I've changed like my life. I've done different things very, very drastically, from hot, cold, and bad to good, to dark to light. I've gone backwards and forwards.
Right.
Um, and it's very easy to I get lost a little bit when I think about my past when all was bad and good,
Right.
because it's traumatic, but at the same time, it's helpful. Yeah.
I think that is one of the harder lessons of life as well. Is, as you said, there's probably no one who hasn't got like darkness in their life. There's no one that is purely light, and there's also no one who is purely darkness. So um, we all need to evolve, and every human being during their life will evolve and learn, hopefully every day. But like they will do that, and that is part of it. So just accepting these phases still is a hard thing, right? Because you're like,
Mm. Yeah.
why does there have to be darkness? But in the end, that is how we learn. That's how we grow, right?
Yeah, we grow
Without
in we grow
failure.
in the darkness. It's our bodies release, the um, chemicals in a DMT and all that gets released at night, and
Right.
um, what's it called, serotonin and
That's
all
what you
that. When it's dark, and plants grow. Like if you're growing plants, you need to have dark time for them to absorb all the heat, and it's just like because I look at things, has Thoth, the Egyptian god of wisdom, said, as above, so below. But we do something small, and it's the same in the broad, big world, and everything is the same energetic differences, just opposite. Good, bad. You can't be completely good all the time, and then not, otherwise you've got a lot of bad darkness that's
That is
hiding in the shadows.
just the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything has to be balanced, and perspective shifts are something that's really hard to come into, especially when it comes to your life as general, but my life, because I've taken so many different shifts of perspective in my life, it's hard for me ever to settle into just one solid, like, and this is how it is, because I'm evolving all the time. I never close my mind to learn anything. And that's what the hard thing is. I find it hard to go, today there's no good or bad,
Mhm.
because tomorrow there might be, I don't know,
Yeah.
because that we say, okay, killing is bad. Yeah, killing is bad to harm someone, but usually people don't go killing people for no reason, and then who has a reason? And someone else has a reason, everything's bad, and then everything's good, and then, it just,
It's a very philosophical thing again.
yeah,
Like to always look, nothing happens because of just one reason most of the time.
yeah,
Maybe there's some evil people who are just like, oh, this person look like they want to get killed by it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
maybe there's one person like that on Earth, but usually it's like a lot of different things
yeah,
that
yeah.
that result in that.
Uh, well, with goodness and dark and light, and it's just a polar thing, we've got North Pole, South Pole,
Right.
and it comes down to small things like people have got good feelings and bad feelings. And when I have a good feeling, it radiates out. I believe, actually, I know this, that like my daughters, I've got two daughters, they're very close
Right.
in age. One is always very, because she's a cold person. She doesn't have much mood. The other one is a hot person, and she tries to spark her all the time, but she does it in a negative way because she needs her reaction. Because if she does it in a good way, she doesn't do anything. So she
Yeah.
negatively gives her, teases her, and says, you're this, you're that. And she goes, go away. And she'll run in that, but she needs to get that, because everything's balanced. And so
Yeah.
other people balance other people as well without even knowing it. There's a polarization in life where people are balancing each other all the time, because if anything's unbalanced, the world would cease to exist. It has to be balanced, everything, all the time. And so,
I think I can share the experience because my younger sister, she's 2 years younger than me, also was a very calm person, collected person, always very rooted and like what she wanted. And I was kind of the more eccentric, nagging guy. So
yeah,
I can really like
yeah,
understand that part. It's like, do something. Hey,
yeah. If you,
you know,
if you, as you would like with your sister, because I have a sister like that too. And I
right,
have this really big urge when I'm around her just to pester her and to get her to pop out of her shell. Like, and
right.
I'll say things that will, so because she's so straight all the time. And she's, don't do this, don't say that. And I'm like, no,
Mm.
I'll do things.
And then I'll have to do them
Yeah.
like on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And something just little like that with, I'm releasing cortisol, and I'm doing it. I'm serotonin making and trying to make her laugh, and she at the same time her body's reacting in a way that
Yeah.
I'm having it. Something as basically scientific as that. good and bad, hot and cold, how it affects each other, and then it goes out to the wider existence of life. Uh, Um, you've got societies in general. You've got hot societies and cold societies. And New Zealand is a cold society, in my opinion. Um, it's 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 something that is, I think it's the multicultural too are very protective people, and they're very sacred. They make things, and they do that as an offensive strategy to, like, because people don't want to go certain places in their lives. They have to develop it's tough, it's sacred, but it's just another place, just like anywhere else. Right? It has collected energies from people and consciousnesses, and it holds things and and energies and the nature around it. But it's not as the multicultural very, oh, it's sacred, it's tougher than that. And it can be, but it's a way of, and that's rubbed off on society in general. Um, you know, and when you start treating things like they are sacred and in tapu and you can't go near, and or you don't do this, and there's all these traditions around it, it spreads out. Society starts becoming like that. All these traditions, they do, oh shit, better not interrupt with him, better not interrupt with him because he's got his own thing. And all of a sudden you've got a segregated big society of someone choose the agent, and um, it's just starting off with the individual. It's like polarization of society that this reflects out. And yeah,
Yeah, like you've said, that's the thought I lost there for a second. I think like that's a hard thing for a lot of people is just seeing all these different perspectives and actually being able and open to them, because obviously the way easier approach to life is, I'm right, I figured it out. That's an easy way to go through life. It's like, oh, I know everything. Of course, everything's great, and that makes for an easy life. But you're just shutting yourself off to learning so much important stuff.
yeah. I think when you were saying that, I've learned it. I'm right. I know this. There's a time because there's a time that I'll sit with something and I go, okay, now I know this, but then I've always have to open up and go, and then it's just being open to constantly like a weaving something, you weave it under, over, under, over, over, under, over, under. You've got to be able to do the same sort of thing, like a snake. You know what I mean? Like a snake wriggles and it moves with the earth, even though it's not made for the earth. It's like energy, and we just have to do the same thing. Just move and change our perspectives and just
Wiggle through
wriggle through life like it
once or twice, shed our skin, and
that's like a snake does. And people look at, and it's been Catholicism and some this as they look at that the demon snake and Adam and Eve in the garden. They were perfect. They were naked. They didn't know they were naked until the snake gave Eve the apple. She took a bite, and everyone hates woman because she was the beginning of just eating the solid. That the snake gave her, and then Adam ate it, and then all of a sudden, so that's branched out, and everyone thinks the snakes. And there you go, poison snakes. But then even talking about a snake is demonic. A picture of a snake. Yeah. It's just the same. So we're getting back into the same thing, the society and how things start with the small individual and then just branch out. And
but that is also something I think everyone should, or at least can. I'm not forcing anyone, but everyone can accept in their lives. Is that just don't force anything on other people. If you are of the opinion that you're doing something good, that your way of life is something that is good for humankind, just do it by yourself and it will radiate out. People will catch on to that. I believe in that a lot as well, because every time I myself get more productive, because I have very, very long spells of being lazy, being stagnant, the world around me seems to be stagnant too. And when I come to be more productive, I start doing things. I see things happening around me. I see other people so catching on. So it definitely works like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think I think when you talk about there's a time when you're stagnant, and yeah, I do like that too. But I think it's very necessary for us at times to sit with everything, and this is what I try to do when I weave planks and sticks and make things. So try to sit with my ideas for a bit before I continue. Um, because I don't think there's a lot of people in life that can sit with their ideas. They're stuck in a rut and they can't, like my uncle, bless his soul, he's worked his ass off his whole life, he worked, 70, 80 hour weeks, physical job, engineering, but engineering on the job, like welding, putting
Right.
up steel. Um, and then he, he works his way up into a place where he's got all this money, but he can't sit still with himself. He's always got to be doing something. His mind can't sit still because when it does, and it's something that I got from being in prison because I was like that too, because I've been brought up as a worker, I was trained, in a special way. And so being able to sit with myself for 7 years of sitting in prison, I was in cells just like that we're sitting in at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, just for the people listening, we are recording this in the Jailhouse Accommodation in Christchurch, which is a former prison being used as a hostel now. So that's why we're actually sitting in a prison cell right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a great transition. I basically already gave up on all the questions I've written down here because we're just such a great natural conversation. But maybe that can be our next topic is your time in prison. Do you think what you just mentioned is that the one greatest thing that you learned from prison, or what are the things
Prison
that
was
you gained during that
prison was it's been my savior. Really, really.
time?
It was I was involved in like fighting doing something I thought was good that turned out to be bad. That had a good outcome, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
it was it was done with good intentions, stuff that I did, and it ended me up in prison. And um, prison was one of the biggest things that ever happened that made me be able to sit with my and like I learned to express myself. I learned to write with both hands. I can draw with both hands. And I did that sitting in a prison cell for hours and hours and hours on my own. Right. Practicing because, but not only that, when you've got so much time to yourself, I was on like 23-hour lockdown. We had 1 hour out with a few people, in a yard.
So that was the reality for 7 years.
Yeah.
In 23 hours with yourself.
Yeah.
No cellmate, just yourself.
No cellmate. At times, I went to different blocks. So I went to different blocks, and the different blocks there's different regime. So I was a high. They put me as a high class prisoner, which is someone that's high risk, and that wasn't because of me being a high risk, but it was because of who I was involved with.
Right.
And so prison can be actually people that can get out to work. Like here, they've got good working units. They've got and they can actually do some actually good implement some good. But I was rotted in prison. I got no help whatsoever. I was treated like scum, and even in prison, it was. But it opened me up to myself, being able to sit with myself. And
Right.
once I became, I learned that even though I was in jail, I was free because my mind, I can let it run wild,
Right.
and I can, and the stuff that I would like to say that I feel like it would maybe sound like a bit nuts, so I won't. But my drawing, my art became a big part of who I am. I learned tattooing because I've been tattooing now professionally for 5 years.
So that's where you first picked that up.
Yeah.
That's something you wanted to
Yeah.
do was in prison.
Yeah. So I went to prison when I was 16 when I got back from Australia.
So you went to prison in New Zealand.
And and it was, yeah, tattooing was something that I did in prison and I learned to make tattoo machines out of,
Right.
out of, yep,
The
we learned to,
things you had
things we had,
available.
we learned to make do, like if there was a cell down, you know, 20 meters away, so that cell there, I could get something under the door all the way down to that cell down there
Mm.
because we knew how to,
Like, how to do
so it was called fishing and we'd get our tomato sauces and butters that we'd get, you pierce a hole in them, we'd rip our feet, tiny little string, we'd rip it with pie and I put it under the door and we get out and go out and the next cell would flip their one out and then catch it and then pull it in. And then the next one, pull it out again. And that next cell would catch and pull it in. And then they put it in the envelope. And if it was a cookie time I wanted, they'd crush it into bits and put it under the door and then put it in the envelope and send it back up. And so I got used to making things out of nothing. And but I gained the skill of tattooing, which I've used for economic purposes, to make money for the last 5 years. And that's even after going through university. And I fell back on something I learned in prison
Yeah.
as a means to get through society, because people go to university and train at higher educations to get better jobs, mainly. But I didn't
Right.
go there for that. I didn't go there for that at all. I went there as like a kid in a candy store, and so I've fallen back on what I learned in prison. In prison, I became a personal trainer while I was 2009. And that taught me a lot about my own body, the anatomy, and then I learned, because I had so much time on my hands, I learned how to manipulate different parts of my body because I was in my cell, and so I was like, okay, what do I do? I can only control who I am physically. And so physically, jail was like a physical thing. Like I can control how I look. They can't take that away from me.
Yeah.
I can work out. I can control the diet. They only give you 3 meals, but I can ration it out and I can do a little bit.
Right.
And so I control how I looked. And they didn't like that. I got like musty in prison. And I remember seeing the police and they were angry to like, why we're out here working. If you're in there, I say, there's only so much rest of the buddy before it becomes fucking insane. Like, we work 9 to 5 or whatever, 7 days a week. You think of someone lying in a jail bed and you think that would be heaven. But heaven turns to hell pretty quick because, you can only sleep for so long before it becomes unbearable and it becomes your only escape is sleeping. And then you can't sleep. And then you get to a point where your mind is much down. And, I went for long periods without sleep. It was horrible. That's the, silver linings on everything, I don't, it's just taught me to be patient. Patience is one thing. If someone said to me, who are you? I am patience. And that's all I am. I'm patient because that's the only thing that, like if I look at a dog takes the virtue of loyalty and it takes it and it lives it. A dog will be loyal to you forever. It doesn't matter if you beat the living shit out of it.
Yeah.
To break his legs, it will still call back to you to lick your wings because it's loyal, doesn't matter what. And patience, any virtue you can follow to a T and be that is you. That's all we are. We're not roles of, I'm a carpenter. No, that's a skill I've learned to manage in the world. And that's not who I am. What controls the way my carpenter or the way I build is done is controlled by the way the virtues I hold close. If I'm an angry person, it's rush, my work's going to look shit.
Yeah.
If I'm a patient person, it's got time and love and actually understand something more because sometimes I see people and they're angry and they're frustrated and they yell and they'll steal from me like my bike got stolen. But I didn't lose my shit. Right? Because I understand something that person is actually aware of themselves and it's not their fault. And so when you become aware of something that other people aren't and you can see people acting on it, it becomes hard for you to be angry. Right. You have to be patient because we're all on this together. Everyone that's cracked from the earth. Now I'm saying everyone that walking around is from the earth, because I don't know that. I can't say it for sure, but I know that when I'm around people that are, I can feel it, and I know that if we're all in this together, why not we just be patient with each other, and patience, everyone was patient, we'd have a far better society. I mean, there is times to be impatient. Say if you're in traffic and someone's driving in the back of the car, I'm not going to stop at a red light.
Yeah.
I'm going to zip through it. And if the police chase me, I'm going to keep going because I want to get that person in the hospital.
Right.
But that's discretionary, it doesn't make you an impatient person. It still makes you a patient person. It just makes you a
That you
caring
need to
person.
adapt to in
Yeah.
different
And
situations.
that's why I always say, I find it hard to ever pinpoint where I am. And that's why I consider myself an existentialist, or just
Yeah.
someone who doesn't label themselves because of the baggage that they carry. I mean, I'm like, well, I'm attracted to being Christian. I think I'm a Christian now. Well, all of a sudden, a Christian, you hate paganism, you believe in devil, you believe in hell,
Right.
there's, and then people, there's all different sides, but that's the main thing, you adopt something and that's where you stay in history. And then a tree will grow in yours, a tree grows because I look at, as we were talking about the other day, trees are stuck where they are and they grow and they record knowledge. They can, they're made from this, the little chips we have, like the SD cards,
Yeah.
they hold so much knowledge. Imagine how much knowledge a tree branch could hold. Yeah. A drop of water can hold more knowledge in the whole world. That's the Heroites or whatever they were saying. One drop of water and same thing in crystals, it's just, I'm sort of rambling because I'm sort of finding
No.
everything sort of connecting in a way, but like when I'm going about existentialism,
Yeah.
existentialism was a big movement after the war because people were afraid, and it started out of fear, afraid to label themselves as anything because they didn't want to get stuck and ostracized. Because that's what people do, is they look for something that pisses them off and then they'll ostracize it. But if you can keep yourself from being any sort of label, I'm an existentialist. That's a label in itself. But I would say I am an existentialist. I just practice existentialism.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very good point that I share as well. We obviously what defines us is how we do things, not what we do, because
Yeah.
what we do can fade away anytime. You never know if you're gonna have a job tomorrow. Like obviously most of us do, but
Yeah.
you never know. Maybe you get fired tomorrow. Maybe the branch you work in is not desired anymore. Like all these things can fade, and everything, as you said, is always change. Life is always change. So the only thing we can keep of us is the values inside of us. Um,
That sparks something that I wanted to say because intention, we do things with an intention. My intention is, and this is where people remain ignorant a lot of the time is, you can see people doing something with an intention, like a soldier will do something with a good intention because he's a soldier, he's told to do orders and he's taking money home to feed his kids and family. So he will do whatever he's told, you know what I mean? But then you've got people like that do stuff and it's, I don't know, like, it's, I've sort of lost my train of thought.
what you were saying, people that do things of a good reason, like the soldier
Yeah.
feeding his family.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's because and that's why we change the perspective shift. We can't judge someone because I could say that person there went off and killed an innocent person.
Yeah.
But he was being loyal and being doing what he was told because he believed in the cause of this having this was good, There's intention. And that's why intentions seem to matter to me because I know that especially people that aren't aware of a lot of things, when they do something like that, like girl stole a bike, her intention was to help herself, whether it was food or drugs or whatever, but it was to, and so
It was not to harm you
it
at
wasn't to
all.
harm me at all. And it's just an object that is nothing. At the end of the day, what is it? It's an object. Objects mean nothing in the world. We give them meaning. If someone said, you can have this whole world with no people, and you can have everything you want,
Yeah.
it's just boring. That stuff enhances our experiences because the thing that matters is the people and the love that we show to them. And so if we can't show love to people even when they do bad things. So when someone does something and if it turns up being bad, if we, okay, yep, that's it, you're bad and you're down and you're staying down forever, you know, because you're bad, it's taking one perspective shift, to look and go, this person's on a learning curve to learn something because that girl will learn something. She'll go to prison. And, I know prison's not a good place, but you learn a shitload in there, more than I was a very angry person when I was younger because of how my good dad was and how he was treated. And I won't go into all that, but, I was angry at society. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that again is the whole label thing. If you label someone as bad, that in itself shows us that you don't want that person to become good.
Yeah.
Because why otherwise would you label them?
Yeah.
Right?
That's beautiful what you said. That is beautiful. I mean, I wrote a lyric like that. It said, um, uh, oh, uh, there's no hope. If you gave me a label, there's no hope. You can't label someone bad. That's it. You lose the hope. And then
You discourage that person from changing
it's
his
from
life.
learning. But remember that no one is perfect. If everyone had their final, it's all about the journey that we take, and if everyone had it all mapped out, they wouldn't have a journey to take. They would be there, they would be where they wanted to
Exactly.
go. The journey is about moving and evolving and understanding and keeping a loving perspective, because the minute we stop and they start hating on each other, the minor thing, that they can't really explain, and, just you can have a perspective, okay, they piss me off. It's like, yeah, they really pissed me off. But I've got 8 other perspectives to take, and that one there really is the one, where you've got perspectives that piss you off. It triggers, your adrenal glands, you start aging,
Yeah.
and the biggest thing to make people age is lying.
Mhm.
Apparently, it's the biggest thing that makes people age is when they lie. It makes their face brown and they get cords. And, I had a girlfriend, just sort of branching off a little. Sorry to go off this, but she was 30.
It's super interesting.
She's 30 years old, and she was my last girlfriend I had, but she looked a lot older because she told so many lies. And it wasn't that she wanted to lie; it's that she had become a lie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
she started lying to make her life feel better than what it is. And so, because she couldn't deal with what she was going through, and she looked like she's about 45. Her body was young, her face was just old. And
Right.
I remember sitting around her, listening to her when we were around people, because she constantly talked. She couldn't be quiet, couldn't sit quiet. And she'd make up lies to make herself look good and to make herself feel good. And then she'd believe them and then expect me to go along with it, But I'm sort of a person, I was like, okay, I can see, but that's getting back to it. Lying makes you age. And I guess all the different chemicals we rub on our bodies and showering and, oh, geez, it's a whole nother word. They won't go into that.
No, but I can't believe that. It must be so much internal stress that is being caused by yourself or whenever yourself is at that point and keeping that lie alive.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's internal stress. But yeah, maybe to come back to your time in prison just for one more time.
Yeah.
Um,
Just sorry to keep snaking off on these
no,
tangents.
this is definitely going to be the best episode so far. I'm loving the conversation. It's
Oh,
great.
thanks.
It's great. And everything you just said was so beautiful as well. And a point I just wanted to make to review everything you just said is obviously you didn't go into prison voluntarily, but I think that is something that nowadays would be so important as well to just realize that forcing yourself to be bored opens you up to just thinking, because we're not used to being bored. Like no one sits in a cell for 23 hours. No one does that. So no one is forced to really think about what is it that I am? What is it that I want to portray? So I feel like maybe it would do, and especially the technology hinders us from that as well.
Mm.
But we could all like really profit from being bored every now and then and
Yeah,
just getting stuck with our thought.
yeah. I think like words like bored, the word bored sort of triggers me to feel like someone that sort of feels like in depression a little, like, but being able to sit there quietly, because I like to have my headphones blaring, but now and again, I like to sit there and just listen to the sounds around me, take in the sounds while I'm doing something with my hands, and then thinking, because my hands will process my thoughts into an object or drawing. And so that's an artistic connection that this is sort of spiraled back to, I guess, an artistic connection that a lot of people go to university and places to try and learn just that,
Right.
just how to let go. Because when you're controlling, say, something and a picture, say you're drawing a picture and you're controlling every last thing, and then something goes wrong, and then it never looks like what you want, but you're trying to put people focus more on the picture of what they're drawing rather than what going into it.
Yeah.
Like, and it's the same as being in the moment with the journey. Um, it's being able to be present with the art, but sitting with the thought and just letting your hands and mind go for it. You've got to be patient though, because usually initially when I do that, see, I'll do sessions with myself and I do this regularly, and I'll sit there and I'll close my mind down. I'll
Mhm.
think of a thought and I'll just say something like, as above, so below. And I'll start weaving sticks or I'll start drawing. And I
Mhm.
won't think about my hand. I draw with two hands at the same time. And sometimes they mirror each other. Sometimes
Right.
but after 2 hours, I'll look at it and it might look like a bunch of scribbled lines, but I'll put that away and then I'll come back to it another time and I'll do the same method, and it takes time, but it always comes out as something beautiful
Yeah.
because in this reality, everything's a pattern. It doesn't matter what you do. Move that bottle like that in over to the side of the table, and just by moving a bottle, you're changing the pattern of a reality. But it is a pattern. Everything's patternized, and our social lives are patternized. They're all,
Right.
everything's a pattern. And so, if we can get the idea of we're creating patterns no matter what we're doing, we can let go of trying to control everything because the pattern's going to be beautiful in the end, if you know what I mean. And so we can
Yeah.
just enjoy the experience of actually doing it and thinking, wow, my body is made up of billions of DNA, trillions of DNA cells from how many generations of people learning and doing things. And my conscious mind can't handle it because if we gravitationally pulled down, we can only use 20% of our mind. My conscious mind can only observe the beauty of it. But
Right.
my subconscious mind, with all the skills that I have acquired from all my DNA, will come into play. And so being able to shut down your mind to be an observer, a conscious observer, which is what meditation is that you're letting go of your conscious mind and sitting back in the seat for a bit. And I see you meditating, you do conscious meditation,
Yeah.
and sitting one and still, it's so good for you. I've had to do a lot of sitting still for myself throughout my life, and it triggers my thoughts. And that's why the conversations I have, especially with someone like you, is very open and you're very receptive. My conversation will go from it'll go macro to micro, I'll think of the
Yeah.
small effect and then the large effect. And it's very easy to draw that picture with you because you're receptive to it and
Yeah.
you ask, and I can tell you this thing. It's like, it's so
I'm very interested. But yeah, that's something meditation told me as well. Like
mm,
meditation is something very important to my life as well. Just making sure that we never forget that we only live in the present
mm,
because the mind wanders constantly. Like
yeah,
our thoughts always, they're just there. So we spend a lot of time and thought about the future. Maybe thinking about the future can be positive. Thinking about the past usually is really negative. But either way,
Yeah.
we think either about the future or the past.
Yeah, we're
We're
going
not
backwards
really.
and forwards, it's a polarizer. It's the same with everything in life. It's backwards and forwards, and as you say, it's
So after you spend all that time in prison, maybe there's also something that, because I think I kind of heard it in there. Uh, what do you think is it that prisons, especially in New Zealand, because that's what you know, is, is there things that prisons here do right, and then is there things where you definitely say this would need to change, just
mm,
to what we just talked about, just being the people, not labeling them as bad,
yeah,
trying to
yes,
make
that's it.
them better. Like, is
That's
there
it.
things like that that we should improve in the system?
Yeah. So my experience of prison is that when they label you, even in prison, as trouble, they won't try to help you. They will let you rot.
Right.
And the people that usually might come in for a car offense, they might have drunk drive and they've
Mm,
got a job, they've got a house, they've got a wife, they've got kids.
right.
They might only get a few weeks. They'll give them these really luxury jobs, because they're
Mm,
easy. They're easy. And statistic wise, because there has to be a correction statistic chart come out. Statistically, if they get all these people that aren't really people that need to work on, the real people that need to be worked on are people that are unsocialized
right.
because of antisocial upbringings, which is caused by society in general, um, replicating behaviors from generation to generation. And these ones here, they feel like me, they stick me and let me rot. Whereas all these people are getting corrective trainings and everything. And I was there in prison just rotting, getting nothing. And I was always like, well, that guy doesn't need help. He might only have a year or might,
Mm,
so they would do all the easy things to make it look like there was some, a really big change happening. Whereas the ones that were the numbers already, they're just waiting for us to get out to rip to do it again so they can flick us back because that's where all
mm,
the money is. The money, each prisoner costs so much money to keep in prison. It's where the jobs come from. They're constant, and I call the branch of deviance lifestyle, which deviance isn't a bad word. It deviates from the social norm.
right.
Those people there are the blacklisted people, which are numbers. The numbers for the creatures to cycle through, and the police will watch
Yeah.
them. When they get out, they will watch this probation. They'll give them a shit probation officer to watch them, make sure they fuck up. They got them to sit straight back, and that is again keeping a polarization and an energy flow. Because energy, society in general, we have to have more energy input than we do output because we are energetic beings. And so energy is constantly being recycled in different ways. And it's our job to try and contribute to create where the energy flow goes.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think it's a responsibility for all humans and all people to actually try and be responsible for where energy output in any form, doesn't matter what form it is and how it goes, because, and as I say, antimatter and quantum physics, they say you can't see it, but it exists, dark matter, but it's not bad. It doesn't exist. It holds us in existence. So it
Yeah.
needs to be treated with respect.
It's not really called dark matter as well because it's something inherently bad. It's just something we don't understand yet.
Yes.
That's why we're in the dark
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
That's why it's
Yeah. Yeah.
dark matter.
Yeah.
But
Um,
uh, touching on that prison business kind of as well, it's like it's always very difficult, in my opinion. It's things that are created to help society because um, I mean, maybe I'm too optimistic here, but I believe that in general, the police were at some point created to do good. Maybe people were thinking, okay, we need some kind of controlling mechanism because we don't want that to happen.
yeah.
But as soon as it turns into a business, and the same, in my opinion, at least, for with pharmaceutical companies, which
Yeah.
were originally meant to, yeah, we help people, we can do medication that helps people, and as soon as these things become
Yes.
a business,
Yeah.
they can't really be run objectively, and
No,
that's
no.
where the problem
Yeah.
comes.
And then the thing that becomes a solution perpetuates the problem. It starts perpetuating it, and it does it unconsciously. Like, I'm not saying there's police out there that purposely label these group of people. Okay, there may be people that understand that, but the ones that are on the field are just doing their job.
Um, Let me have a look at some of the questions that I paired. Actually, we already talked about a bunch of the things I wanted to ask with my questions just naturally because
Yeah.
we just talked about things that were important to you, and maybe then to make the transition to your being a tattoo artist. So you said you also learned that in jail, and what would you say is the most, like, again, rewarding part, but maybe also if you could think about a very challenging part about this kind of activity as a tattoo artist, because it's not a very straightforward job. It's not like this house needs to be built, you know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, just what did you learn from being a tattoo artist?
I guess when I started in prison, it was being able to. I didn't have much respect for it there because it was more about making money to survive in prison,
Right.
and people in prison want bad tattoos to show
Mm,
their stance, with
right.
whatever it is. Um, but when I got out and I started pursuing it professionally, challenging for me was the fact that someone gave me their body to put something on that's there forever,
Yeah.
and it was up to me. And when I started doing it professionally for good money, I initially was I had to breathe. I remember when I got my first tattoo in the studio, and because I sold myself as a professional tattoo artist, but I'd only ever tattooed in prison.
Right.
So I'd never been in professionally. This is when I first started in the studio. And so
Mhm.
I remember when I had to do this first tattoo on the skills arm, and it was a biking compass, and
Mm.
they had a lot of straight lines, and I'll show it to you now. I got it on my leg there. I ran into the toilet.
Oh.
I ran into the toilet and I did the exact same tattoo because I was so nervous that I was going to.
Oh shit.
So I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I can do this before, because I'd never
Right.
tattooed with a stencil in the studios. And yeah, face stencil tattoos. Someone gives you the image, you stencil it on their skin, you follow a line.
Yeah.
But I'd always just tattooed out of my head, just like, and just started doing it freestyle. And so, um, yeah. And then that was really challenging. I can remember that the feeling even comes over me just thinking about it, the gut thinking, what if I fail? She's paid all this money, but I did it. Yeah. I was confident enough. I put it inside and I went out and I killed it. Yes. I did it. I did a real
That's
good
great.
job. And then, um, but the most rewarding thing about being a tattoo artist for me is the social connection I get with all different types of people on all walks, and they all want a story. If I was to show you some of my tattoos I've done, if they were at one stage, but a lot of people, a girl came into me, she was 29 and she'd been in a really pit of depression for 2 years because her 9-year-old daughter and her husband were killed in a car accident. And
Mm.
she wanted, and it brought tears to my eyes as I was tattooing her daughter's name, her date of birth. She died, but the blessings that people would give me, privilege of doing that for them, I was like, wow, you know. Um, and then it was just, when people want tattoos, it's always memorial. It's never people. People intrinsically, each person wants meaning, a deep meaning. They don't want just randomness. Randomness is scary for humans and people. People want things to be meaningful. So
Yeah.
being able to get, and I'm really good at transferring someone else's feelings too into art. Like if they tell me, and that was one of the things that I learned from tattooing, was being able to listen to people and then bring it out what they say with my hands, and
Yeah.
transfer it to someone else's. Because I'm really good at doing it myself. I think to shut down my front mind But when you tattoo, you have to keep part of your frontal decisions, that you have to keep that in check, because you don't want your God conscious, as they call it, to run off and start doing a whole nother tattoo, because and so I'd have to, but um, I know that's a funny way of looking at it, but it's probably the best way I can put it. But it was what keep me in check with my designs, because a lot of the time, and I have to admit, there were people that would come in and would just want and I would just be like following lines, and I wouldn't put any artistic, creative thing into it at all. It was just for money.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people just didn't have a connection with what they wanted. They wanted a tattoo because it looked cool. Like my cousin came to me and she wanted a tattoo here, something, because it was cool. It looked cool,
Yeah.
And so there are people like that, but
I feel like, yeah, because you talked about the stencil tattoo and freehand tattoos, and there is probably people who like, oh, I saw this on my favorite celebrity, I want the same thing.
yeah.
But then probably what is even the more rewarding for you as well is when it is more intimate than that, when
Yeah.
it really does have that meaning, and you basically create it together with the person, because it is such an intimate thing
It
to
is.
put part of yourself, like
Yeah.
yourself's interpretation of their
Yes.
thing on their body.
It's a huge privilege that, when I did, he's my friend from many years, and I did his mata ora, which is uh, a full face tattoo,
All
a
right.
Maori full face tattoo. And so when I did that on him, just the setting, the day we lay I did it on the ground. So he lay down on the ground, the energy, it's all energetic, it's, if the energy was off, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because they are really big deals. But I mean, I do faces, but all the Māori stuff, when I do Māori stuff, it's like, it's just because Māori art tells stories in a way that anyone can read, but most people just see it as swirls and twirls.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about this a little bit more, because I heard, or I kind of know that these face tattoos have an immense meaning, right?
Yes,
Like,
they do.
every single part of it tells some kind of story, but I don't know a lot about it, so I don't want to say anything about it. Could you maybe explain what this all is about?
Yeah. So, and a Māori tattoo, you've got where the ink is, the part where the skin is, and there's the korus. So they represent people and events, and then what the lines are called, the inner lines of the Māori tattoos are called, is manawa lines. They're your heart lines, right? And so when someone tells you a story, you can interpret it with the beginning, which is like a yin and yang. There's the two quarters meeting each other, the two opposites, polar opposites coming in, and then you come out and you spiral like the universe, right? That's how all body designs start. As they start with balance, with two quarters meeting each other. The face and what it was originally, the mata ora, there's a myth behind it, but I won't go into that because it's a long Māori myth. But the streaks on your face, so if it's down like that, see, not all down like that, but some of them, it naturally follows the facial lines and that. But one side is your mother's family and one side is your father's family. Balance. And each individual line represents, because as Māori people, we have a whakapapa, which is our history, our ancestral history. And it's so when you're a Māori person, you have to know all the way back. That's why the treaties Waitangi, because we know our history.
Right.
A person today has to know where he's come from. And that's why I think, especially with my grandmother's family, we don't, and in the Western European way, isn't really to know much about your history.
Yeah.
You don't pay enough respect to it. I don't even know my great granddads. They're all A's. Anything passed in on that side of my family is just blame. They don't even talk about them.
Yeah.
Whereas Māori people will keep the traditions of those who have passed alive. So they're always there. The ancestors, if you walk on a marae, that you can see the carvings that depict them, and they can name them. And so you can go through it, you can see, and it just carries from generation to generation. That's why. That's a little bit about the tattoos, and and how we tell stories is it's the heart lines, as the manawa lines is the main thing that holds your story together.
Right.
Is and and so yeah,
But with that background that you just gave, which again, thank you for taking the time to explain that. Um, this is again such an intimate thing. Like
yeah,
you being the one to basically write someone's history down,
yeah, yeah. For
ever to be seen, right?
yeah, yeah, and so there's different types. Like there's kirituhi tattoos, which are Māori tattoos, but on non-Māori people, which means that
Mm,
they have a story, but it's not necessarily a whakapapuka story back to their
right.
history of the ancestors. Like you've got David Beckham and all that. They've got the
Yes.
tattoos and it will tell a story at the beginning, and they might have their babies and their children, and they'll be all depicted in
Right.
there. And but it won't be like, and then they came from this tribe, so they need to have this type of, because
They,
that's when it
they
starts
don't
getting,
know their
yeah, that's,
this.
but that's what I was talking about earlier, is the multiculture have a really articulate way of making things seem super, super duper special. So it's really brilliant. And so, oh no,
Right.
but we'll share this art with you. You can only have it as a kinatuhi, not a tamoko, which is what we call it. Tamoko is a story. Kinatuhi is a pretty design. So
Mm,
we give people freedom, but you can't be subjected to having the knowledge and all this. But it's just life. And
mm,
by making things so special and so privileged, and that we segregate ourselves, and that's one thing our culture's done wrong, is made ourselves, which we call tapu, which is sacred. And when you become sacred, people don't go near you because you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, well,
right.
what happens if you go near? Or you might have some
Sacred.
bad sacred thing or some bad energy would come up. But it's by labeling things like that, life's going to happen either way. You know, if I walk on somewhere where they call sacred, I'm going to walk off, and hey, bad things might happen. So good things happen too, because everything's going. I see things like when I've just come off a really bad 1 year of, you know, I just finished some work, but I just came off a really bad year of growing, and it
Right.
was so painful, man. I mean, it's probably the most painful year I've had in my life. But I know now I'm ready to come up to the good, because everything is connected and balanced. So
Yeah.
while I was going through that, all I thought to myself was, man, I can't wait for the good times to start, because they're going to be off the hook, because
That's amazing to hear.
yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
keeping that, because while I was going through darkness, and I'll go through darkness quite a few bit in my life, is I have to keep that, because I know there always is something good, the yin and the yang, the balance, the beginnings, everything happens, and it just keeps balancing itself out. And I think that's the word of the day: balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. And I love it how it ties into basically all the things we talk about, be it from your art being created by patterns, just believing in the balance. I feel like this kind of confidence is also something that people really lack nowadays, is just the belief that everything does come together, everything does
Yeah.
happen for
Yeah.
a reason. And
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
not believing in that, by not having that trust and confidence, that's probably where people do all these, again, bad, we don't like to label bad either, but do all these rather evil antisocial things because they don't have that confidence and trust in everything with
Yeah.
all its good.
Yes. Yeah. And where that comes from is, so you've got confident people, and you say, oh, who would you want doing your surgery? Would you want an Asian guy who's learned it for years and he's so articulate? He's not going to get anything wrong, but he's damn stressing the hell out, right?
Mm,
Because they want to make everything perfect. Or someone that's confident, will do it fast, they might fuck up. But the thing is, when as humans, as people, when we've learned information and knowledge, knowing knowledge makes us cautious, because then we become aware of what could happen and logical. Okay, this is consequential. We become consequentialist in our thoughts. We're like, oh, if what I do this, what's going to happen. Causation is a big philosophical thing that I've gone through over and over again. This is how people get stuck living in the past too, right? Because a pattern will have emerged from their life, and what they'll do is they will hold on to what they've done in the past to determine what their future is going to be like. So, like, hang on, last time, for consciously, like, hey, this is what's going to happen because I'm stuck here, and it happened last time. So it's got things are not causation. One thing causing another thing is not concrete. Things always change, and again, it's adapting, and it always comes back to it.
Yeah, I feel like holding on to patterns or whatever you call it, labeling yourself, habits we develop. It's like having these things hold you back from opportunities because it's like, should I go do this opportunities? No, because I used to be
Yes.
this and that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's even it's it might seem like a good opportunity at the time. People always find reasons to talk themselves out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they
It's
don't
out.
ever
It's out. You know how I try to separate the mind into the frontal cortex, which is the part that makes our decisions, but it's stuck in a survival place. It's always going to tell us something that'll lead us into a place of hibernation almost. Where we're safe with food, and because it's always going to collect information to try and feed to us and say, okay, don't do this, don't do that,
yeah.
and then we get stuck. We get stuck. And so it is about feeding yourself the right information.
Yeah. And to tie back into what we just said with the trust and confidence in the universe or whatever you personally want to
Yeah.
call it, it's just by not having that is fears.
Yeah.
So that is what people is holding back, like you
Fear.
said.
Because the fear is being used as a mechanism in society, especially this one, where it's, Christchurch, Christ is a fear-based religion. It's, how strange is it when as a kid, I grew up in a place where there's a big cross, huge, with Jesus on it, because, we're a lot of, nailed to the cross, where we're sitting there doing rituals of drinking his blood and eating his body, right? Sounds satanic, right?
Yeah.
And think about it like that our perspective was a good thing. He did this, but it's not it makes you afraid because all of a sudden, there's right and wrong sins because he died because of all the sins.
Yeah.
And we live in that's fear that stops a lot of people from doing anything. But that's one thing about the society. It's taken fear and used it as a mechanism, and it's, especially in New Zealand, it's traumatic, but it worked. You know what I mean? It's like, well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Obviously, all of these things that we talk about, people, or there's a lot of people that are aware of these mechanisms, and then it's, I believe, just a matter of how you use it, right? Because you can then also put into that fear and like use that fear
yeah,
to get people to do whatever it is you want to do.
I do believe though that in order to understand our existence in full, we need to have gone through things. Things they have to have physical experiences, because I know that the pain that I've been through and the things that I've seen and had to go through weren't necessary for a lot of people today, because, and then as society evolved, it was like, well, now we're not even allowed to smack children in New Zealand because we know there's an easier way to get to that. Is that the way where you don't need to do that to people in order to get them to the children.
I think it was like the argument was you need to instill discipline, which discipline is a good virtue to have. But then, like you said, there's other better ways to instill that in children.
There is. And a lot of the thing is, as children grow up on devices these days, I've been watching my kids, they watch this thing called Darman. Have you seen Darman? It's quite big for kids.
I don't think that.
But what it is it's situations, and it's situations where there'll be a victim and that'll be victimized. There'll be a girl and it'll show the situation of school. She gets teased because she has old clothes. And it makes
Right.
my girls cry. They're like, oh my God, but it's installing empathy in them, right?
Yeah.
Because the parents are too far away, working, doing stuff to do it for them.
Mhm.
See, for 10 years, I brought up my kids in a way that they got it from me. They got my lessons. So they still do the online stuff and they don't even know that that's what it's installing in them.
Right.
Kids watch it and it's really popular, but but I see what it is. It's installing an empathy in them, which is good.
Yeah.
And it's that they don't have to go through. See, for me, growing up, I had to be the person being the perpetrator
Right.
and then be the person that was victimized to
Yeah.
understand the situation fully. And I don't know if that's something to do with the way I'm built, but um, I don't think that people these days need it. Need to be shown how to do both bad and good. I think it's just a good way of living that holds you in sync with the flow of life. And that's just trust. As we're going back to the trust and everything's fine because I exist.
Yeah.
Everything must be balanced. And when something's out of balance, your body lets you know.
Right.
Even when the world spins on an axis, and sometimes I feel out of balance, and it's either my ears because that's what balances us, or
Yeah.
sometimes it's wobbly here in Christchurch. That's why they call it Quake City, and it
Yeah.
does. The ground gets wobbly. You won't even know, but the ground since earthquakes is slowly.
Yeah.
We're living in the middle of a fault line.
Yeah.
And so at any minute there could be a massive earthquake, and I felt like this morning I felt it rocking. Most people don't even talk about it anymore because it's so normal. It's so normal. But
Yeah.
back when there wasn't any earthquake, it was. But yeah, I don't know how I got on the earthquakes. But
Well, we were talking about off talents and how we get
yeah,
to know these things.
but yeah, that's what I mean. Off balance, your body will let you know. Um,
Yeah.
and everything's. That's one thing. One thing that I could say to someone, hold as a motto to go forward is everything will always be all right. I'm not even sure. I would say it, but there's a lot of things I can't say out loud.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but maybe to summarize one of the points you were originally saying there is I believe so too that that can be a good part of the technology, the digital part is that we don't necessarily need to go through these experiences anymore because when you were growing up, or even when I was growing up, I didn't have like a smartphone until I was 15 or 16. So um, it's like nowadays there's so much information. Obviously, there's also a lot of nonsense, a lot of like very entertainment stuff, but there is a lot of information, and it makes it also with books being globally distributed and all that. We have access to all that information that doesn't make that necessary anymore for us to fail a lot, to go into a lot of these painful situations because we can just get the information from someone else. We
Yeah,
can
yeah,
see, oh, this is what this person had to endure and
yeah,
learn from that, from their
yeah, yeah.
experience.
Well, that's how we are going back. That's how I see universities as people that have that higher education like that don't have to go through this. Like, but that's just something. Other things, like engineering, like yourself, and that it's about um, it's more of a quantitative way of seeing things. Like this.
Right.
It is a good industry to get into. It's not really about um, learning something without going on. It's about society because learning about something through a book opposed to an experience
Mm.
is a gift, a real
Right.
gift. If you're reading the right books, and
Yeah.
and that story someone else has lived, that's yours for the taking. If you can understand. Some people have languages, and I've learned this from books. They have temperaments. the time they wrote it, what what goes into it. And if you can really click with an author, you can actually feel as you're reading the words can even sometimes go in one ear and out the other, but you're feeling what they were writing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like because their thoughts have transferred those words, and sometimes our words, uh, actually, all the time, our words have don't express how we feel
Definitely.
completely. It's a lot to do with our body language, but
We cap ourselves so much because
the
all
language is
we
limited. It's very
it's
limited.
limited because all we can express ourselves is words.
Yes, yes. And how you feeling? I'm bad. Or some shit. Okay. And what's worse than shit?
Right.
Right. There's no, we can start elaborating and stuff, but words are not good representations of feelings or emotion.
Definitely.
The best thing is feeling it. And one thing that has gone wrong, and then I'll just go into this quickly, is we have a quantitative look on society. Someone gets injured, we put them to sleep, cut their skin open, where we'll repair their bone, and that's it. But and this is quantum physics, there's another energy side of us, what we don't see, that controls all our emotions. Our polarization of the fluids and everything and the chemicals in our body that go backwards and forwards to make us do things is all controlled by our energy body. And some people have intricate knowledge of how the energy body works and
Yeah.
can sense problems around people and they can actually fix problem. But it's because people would see it's not a hard science. They'd be like, okay, we can't see you doing anything.
Right.
So we're not good. So one thing that I've decided that I wanted to try and change was to show how I can fix energy because I've done energy healing on people and I had them done on myself. Amazing by people that know what they're doing. But it has to be in your DNA, right?
Yeah.
You have to be a healer. It's just like a surgeon. You can't just go into a surgery, I'm here to cut someone open. You've got to have the hard knowledge of how that works.
Right.
And it's in our DNA as Māori people, and I say this as a people,
Yeah.
we hold a DNA structure and that we can replicate. And so I can say to someone, okay, I'm going to do an energy healing on you because you've got a torn tendon or something.
Mhm.
And I can actually, I know it sounds weird, but I can draw everything without even thinking about it, like a machine with the bones, the muscles, and the problem. And I can energetically show it to them because doing it wasn't just enough. You know what I mean? Like you do it because a lot of the time it's people's perception playing with, their
Mhm.
perception. If they don't go into it believing that I can do anything,
Right.
then their body isn't going to react to it because our vibrations are.
Because the trust is not
Yeah,
there, and
you
it's
have to vibrate at the
the
same
wrong.
level once you're vibrating and you go. So I'd sit someone down and show them all the different, and they'd be like, "Well, how did you draw?" I mean, and I can show them me doing it because, and then they might have some trust in me enough for me to be able to go, "Okay, now I can do it," and we don't have to cut you open, and we can repair because our energy body repairs all the broken things. We may put the bone back together, but the energy in our body, all the cells do all the hard work, and that's all part of it. And I'm really much spiritually and energy and knowing because it's like part of being and one with nature and just understanding different energies
Yeah.
and it just comes down to social intelligence too and emotional intelligence, two big things. Something that I believe you've got really good social emotional intelligence. Um,
Thank
I talk to you when I go through. I don't talk to a lot of people. A lot of people will usually think I'm a bit weird, because of stuff that I do. I'm not. I just have a different perspective a lot of the time. Even people that are from New Zealand will think I'm weird, that doesn't matter to me. But
That's their loss.
yeah,
Honestly.
but social intelligence is one of the biggest things that you can have. So when it comes to feeling uh, energy, that's the best way I can use words. Social intelligence. And just being around someone and understanding, feeling like cats do it. Cats will feel your vibration, and if it's off, they will purr and they will come up to you and wag their tail around, and it will change. People that are aren't aware and you become sensitive to energy. See, as a kid, why I was chosen to do the things that I did and why they put me on this these camps that I used to go on was because I was able to um empathetically pick things up. They called me an intuitive empath.
Mm.
Um, because I could, when you just do something, you're doing the right thing,
Yeah.
but you can put like you do stuff with your hands or with your mind, and you know that what you're doing is
Feels
you're just
right.
intuitively right. You've got a good intuitive. Whereas, as we were talking about before, people that have no intuitive connection are very, very, very because they work on their frontal cortex of their mind, which is a survival mode, which isn't meant to be trusted. It's meant to keep us safe. But we can go back and go, I need to trust my intuition because your intuition, when you're in a bad situation, your gut, your second stomach, or your serotonin and everything's created will let you know this is not safe. Something's off here.
Yeah.
If no one listens to it because we're so in tune with our phones or technology and all the waves that go through the sky take away a lot of our ability to intuitively connect with ourselves. And no one now takes it seriously. So they're like, well, I'm not going to, like, I know you do. I know people that
Yeah.
meditate and people that get one with themselves and nature and balance themselves are really realizing the energies that are around us. That's
Yeah.
one problem with phones and technology is that if we can't balance it enough for us to see the beauty of both sides, like I could demonize technology as fucking shit, it's ruining kids' minds. I can see it's doing good too. It's
Yeah.
installing empathy where they don't have to go through that horrible situation. Like me as a kid, I had to be the person victimized, and then I had to victimize someone because there wasn't a YouTube for me to go and watch someone else do it on, you know?
Yeah.
And so I went through, I mean, I've been through so much physical trauma that could have been prevented. We had that when I was a kid, because
Yeah.
I know I saw, and it's creating a generation of kids that are super empathetic. And I see this with my kids. Any kid that's born in the last 15 years has the benefits of the technology and the good it was used for initially. Like it was initially created, and Wi-Fi and everything was so we could spread information and become a global world, globalization.
Yeah.
We can all have shared information. It wasn't until you get people coming in and trying to scam people or ruining people or taking. Okay, that's and then you don't know what to trust when it comes up because it could be fake, it could be real, but
Yeah.
I have and this is your tuition again comes back to I feel when something's not right and I go with it. No, I know something's not right. I won't because where I have a good intuitive connection and a lot of people do and people practice it. It comes down to practice in anything. If you practice your intuitive connection, like your meditation or whatever it is that
Yeah.
you use, you become one with life. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't seem so important to work and destroy your body to get the next best car that you pay off for the next 3 years, to
Yeah.
get a house that you hardly sleep in. And it's like Jesus, it's like Buddha. They were vagabonds that went from town to town and just spreading happiness and light, which was persecuted by Jesus, of course, but Jesus was persecuted in the end. But they were enlightened people but they weren't forcing it down people's throats. Like, who doesn't believe in this? You're going to hell if you don't. You'll be passed out an iron rod from
Yeah.
God. So it's
They were just always
they were
so
just
loving.
peaceful, peaceful, peaceful person that saw things, and it's like, why would I? I'd want to be more like that. That's how I think anyway. I think
Yeah.
I'd rather be at peace because I know that life is a war between positive and negative. We're constantly charged of fuses going backwards and forward. But if it's stuck on seeing only things as good, we get blinded by the light. If we're stuck on seeing only things as bad, we get lost in the darkness. We have to balance the just the idea that life is a sacrifice. We're here to experience it. Like every breath we take costs us. Every action in this world is sacrificial because we live right now. But who's to say? You know, this is all we've got. This is the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. again, I think if people can take something away from this conversation, it's to find some time and really concentrate on yourself, go inside and just try and think about everything. Think
Mm,
about why we're here. What is it you want to do? How do you want to contribute to this world? And just by sitting with these questions for a little bit, like becoming more, yeah, all these things we mentioned,
mm.
patient, empathetic.
Yeah, like I feel like becoming socially intelligent through your intuition, which is like it's like a psychic thing, right? Because we all are psychics. We all have psychic abilities, which are just um, subconscious things because our frontal line controls the way we live. And if we just realize that, you know, we are social beings, our social intelligence has, and working on things like our intuitive abilities, actually spending time to, even if it's 5 minutes, just to sit. Yeah. Because I try, it's so hard to just, for a lot of people, as we said right at the beginning, to just sit with their thoughts because it's always, we always, as we said, want to live in the future, the next thing, we're always going somewhere. We're always breaking down time and space for clips. You got to pick that up. You got to do this. You got to do that. What about just sitting and thinking about the world and how we can affect it, like, and working on our intuition, meditation, anything, um, binaural beats, that change the hertz of the brain, thinking, theta brain waves and
Yeah.
delta and
Yeah.
changing but then becoming aware of it and realizing it's not just mumbo jumbo. It actually is, you know,
No, it's, yeah.
we are vibrating as, said, vibration is just friction backwards and forwards, which is what life is. It's life and death. We're zombies, basically. We're the walking dead because we are going to die. And what we're doing now is we're slowly dying. Someone says, "Oh, I'm dying." I say, of course you are, because we all are. I
Yeah.
started dying the minute I was born.
Yeah.
It's on a
Exactly.
trajectory. Unless we change it, I could say to myself, listen, I'm not going to die ever because I decided I don't want to. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, because beliefs at the end of the day control our reality. And I know it's, when we touch this, and we physically believe all our senses. But Rene Descartes, 15th century philosopher, said, think therefore I am, cogito ergo sum.
Yes.
And that's all we have is our thoughts. Then what's around me is as subjective realism. It's whatever I make it, you know, whatever I call it, Why is that a door? Why can't that be a bore? Or, no,
I thought
this
about
gets
these
really
things
deep.
so often.
Yeah.
I thought about it so
Yeah.
often, like table, desk. Where does
Yeah.
these words come from?
Well, and this is where the social generalizations that is called social norms, right? But we can change those. We don't have to live by social norms. They're given to us at any given time. I've never seen in my surroundings any more than, okay, at stadiums, I might see 1,000 people, but it's only usually ever got maybe 5 or 6 people in my existence at one time. Yeah. Maximum. I'm only able to conversate with one person at a time, maybe 3 or 4, and like a group conversation, but that's never too deep. You're having a deep conversation right now. And then I start to realize, well, your beliefs do control everything. We live it, because you can't live unless you believe you're alive, really. If I believed I was dead and not, well, because that's why I do believe at the moment that we are going to die. What if I change that belief, Um, and that's getting quite philosophical. You're a lot connected to that, but yeah.
No, but that's where it's like don't think about the future. I mean, thinking about your impending death is basically thinking about future, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
don't even think what will be. Oh, I want to be this. I want to be that.
Because
Just
they're all just part of our ego. That Freud, the psychologist, and had id was the ego. And id was the part of the mind that made all the decisions that made you in a role. We act in a role in life. So my id and identity is id, which is an ego, and entity, which means entity is just a part of our conglomerate, right?
Yeah.
So your id is just that part of your identity that's just an acting role you're doing. So say I'm a mother, I'm a father. That's just part of my entity, my identity, which is part of my ego, which is my acting role. But for who we are has nothing to do with this. Yeah. So um, this is all sort of rounded up into one big thing because we start like,
Cool. But as all our conversations usually do, but
yeah.
I believe we had a great conversation. I mean, obviously, the sort of questions I got on here. I just don't know if after what we just talked about, asking you about your favorite movie, your favorite dish, it's gonna do anything
Well, I
for the
mean,
conversation.
it's because when you asked me what my goal,
Yeah.
and my goal is philosophy. So I believe underpinning this is why at university philosophy is the hardest subject. I remember I went there in the first year. I did all these papers because I was going to be a lawyer, but I couldn't be a
Right.
lawyer because of my history being in prison. And so I changed that while I was there. I did justice paper philosophy, moral justice, and every person I did it with 9 other people. They all dropped out because it was too hard. It was too challenging because you have to put a lot of thought into it. And it's the only papers you can write. You can own it. Like academic papers are very impersonal. You don't use time or anything.
Right.
But in philosophy, you own your ideas.
Yeah.
And like if I go on, I so there's a thing that shows people that have used my philosophy text. I've got thousands of people across the world that are using my things as references. Because philosophy is just thought. And so that's really my goal, is to try and spread good thoughts. And it's such a big thing, but it's such a small, minute process, if you know what I mean. Um, because and being here in this place hostel where you've got a lot of people from all around the world and that is really good because I feel everyone here's got really good energy.
Yeah.
And because I usually when I do like weaving or anything like that, I'll do it in private because I know that people think I'm weird. Because people will look at something like that, they'll walk past and think this guy here's playing with sticks. Okay, there's something wrong with him. He's got depression or he's on drugs. Um, but they don't understand that my mind shut down. I've got a thought that I'm weaving into my stuff that I weave, I draw is there forever. Like my memory of events and that's all I've got. But I know, they're deeply ingrained and like I even tie knots around my arms and that. Like all these things here have a purpose. Like when I have certain ideas, I'll tie knots and weave. It's just a way of like Celtic people. So I got a Celtic cross tattooed here on my head.
Yep.
I got it lasered off. See,
Yeah.
you can feel it's red.
Oh yeah. You can still.
Yeah. I had one laser treatment on it with red and black. Because I've got Irish, English, Scottish,
Right.
Spanish, Māori roots, and so I feel like the Celtic weaving and the Māori art is very closely related. Because Māori, we weave too, but we layer and we repeat patterns. And so do the Celtics. And I think this is something that's been missed by mainstream society is that over the years, generations pass on because we can't conversate. Attention and conversation teaching 2,000 years ago, written down in words, is not going to translate 2,000 years later properly. The social thing's going to be off. We're going to misinterpret it, just like the Bible.
Yeah.
Art is timeless. You can but you've got to be energetically sensitive to understand what it is. And Celtic people did it. They weaved it into their blankets. They weaved it into their. And Maori people do it too. And most cultures do. Indians, ancient Sanskrit cultures, everything's they pass it on through their art. You can and just appreciating it. I don't know where came up with all that stuff, but yeah, I just I don't know. I sort of felt because I feel comfortable opening up and telling you stuff. So
That's great.
because I wouldn't usually say anything like that. People usually might just not even notice, but when I tie knots and that quite often.
But again, seriously, I honestly believe that people can learn so much from it. Or it's a very interesting conversation, and I just don't want to force anything unnatural by asking any of these questions. So I just want to ask you, is there anything else that you want to share? I think we covered most of the things that have a great importance in your life, or
Yeah,
did
yeah.
we miss any?
No, no, like that's like the biggest thing for me in my life and the biggest impact at the moment that has shaped me who I am is prison, in my years of solitary um, and reflection. You know, that's been the biggest thing. And because today I consider myself a gentle person that doesn't want harm for anyone. Now, I
Yeah.
want to try and be a better person, but then radiate that out and hopefully. But it's a painful process, painful process of because it's not about me changing the world. It's about me changing my inner
Yes.
beliefs,
Mhm.
and then my outer world will reflect it. But when you've been brought up in a way like I've been brought up, with fear implementing you to do the right thing, heavy violence, and all this stuff. Psychologically, it's hard to unravel it all. It's hard to unravel all the controlling tactics that have been used on your mind over the years from a young kid to get you to do things. So, but I do that. And another thing I do that, and just getting back to the knots, is I will tie a knot thinking of the problem and then I will untie it thinking of where I want to go. And what that does psychologically is it unties and rewires yourself energetically. This is an energetic thing, rewires you because we are energetic again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. The first question, what shaped me? That's the biggest thing. And then and my favorite food is spaghetti bolognese.
Oh, very nice. Mine is lasagna, so we're
Oh,
not
is
that
it?
far off.
Oh, actually, I quite like lasagna. Actually, it'd be quite a big time because as a kid, my mum used to make it a special sauce,
Oh,
and she always ate, "What's in that?" She go, "A little bit of this, a little bit of that." She never measured anything.
oh,
She
just
just
like
she
feeling it.
feel, and I watched her, and then I learned to make it, and then it's just my favorite. But that's cooking. Cooking's another thing. I wanted to be a chef when I was a kid. It was something I kept because I used to love mixing stuff together and seeing how it would come out. And then knowing what would go with what. You wouldn't go
Mm,
putting like a plum sauce and um
right.
stuff. Certain things. Knowing what goes with what. Cooking in that was a big part of my life as well. But yeah, that's spaghetti bolognese.
That's great. So we got that covered as well. Wonderful. Well, Italian cuisine is really good. It's my
Italian
favorite.
cuisine.
They,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
really
I
are
actually,
really good.
I'd love to go to Italy. I'd love to go to Italy and just eat. I know I've got Italian friends,
Oh yeah.
and that's so into their cooking. Like, like if you're doing
I
something wrong, they will channel you like, oh my God, you don't do that to that. You don't do that to the garlic area.
Yeah.
Olive oil, and, you have like this. And
No, I really know what it's like. When I was in Portugal for the first year, I had two Italian roommates,
yeah,
and they were always in the kitchen. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it was always amazing because they love to share
Yeah,
as well. They're
yeah.
just so loving with it as well. Like,
It's the whole, I like how they make it into like a ritual, they cook
yeah,
it together, they conversate, they eat it
right,
together, and it brings them all together. It's like a,
yeah,
what would you call it? There's a sociological term for it, but I'm not going to go into that. But it's actually just really bonding,
the bonding
and it's a
experience.
lot of most cultures bond over food. Like Maldives are the same. We dig a hole in the ground. Have you heard of the hunger?
I don't know so.
So what we do is we dig a hole in the ground, and we've got special stones. And what we do is we start a fire in the pit and heat the stones up for to like white hot. So it to be white. And then what we do is we put cabbage leaves down, and then we wrap everything in cabbage leaves, so meat, and then we wrap it in flakes, like flakes around here, wrap it all up into flakes baskets,
Yeah,
put it all into the earth. Then we put dirt all over it, and we let it sit for 8 hours. And then we dig it up, and you can taste the earth.
oh,
The earth is the best flavor in the world. Like, I mean, they aren't allowed to sell honey. They're not allowed to sell them. I don't know. But they make them in these big steamers now, which aren't the same. They put a bit of earth at the bottom so you can taste the earth. But it's not the same because you haven't got the stones, you haven't got the actual connection to the earth. So
right.
I wouldn't buy honey, but honey's our traditional food. That's why we like And that's why it's the whole idea of digging the hole together. And I
Yes.
read something on there. What's my favorite saying? Yeah, think about holes. The only job you start at the top is digging a hole.
That's a great
Kept me
one.
humble for
That,
quite a long time because I was taking over business at one stage, and because of my family, these people had worked in this business for 15 years, and because my family owned it, I got in and I was getting trained to be the business owner, but the others hated me because of that, and I understand that.
mm,
And they destroyed my job, which, hey, because, but they'd worked their ass off for years,
right.
got my uncle rich, and then my uncle goes to hand me the business. So, but yeah, that's digging holes because we used to dig a hole with a lot of diggers.
But that's a great saying, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Provocative, isn't it?
yeah. No, but from everything you say, it's just so incredible how you always have this like broader view. You always like understand the other side of it as well. It's a very refreshing conversation. Like really.
Well, when you say it like that, you understand the other side, and it's easier to understand why people do things, and that's like getting back to what we are saying before, and everything sort of tying in because it's anything that I do, anything that I try to, because I don't really like. I had a conversation. I was sitting outside last night, and the young guys got me outside, and they're talking, and they started talking about um stuff that I don't like, stuff like it wasn't healthy in a way, like it was more like, oh, this looking at something in a really negative, dense view, like, oh, this can't fucking do this and that. And I can, with perspective, or maybe here, just having, because I didn't know the situation, but then saying, no, fuck, he's a drop kick, and it's like, well, when people are closed off to anything and they become that feeling, that emotion, that anger, it becomes them. And that's perpetuated because their energy ricochets of other people. And so I can feel energy. I'm so energy sensitive that I have to get away from people like that. Even though they were shouting me joints in there, and I was like, no, I got to go inside. And it's just, but I can be around people like that. And this is the funny thing about me is that I can change. Like if I'm in a situation where I realize everything's antisocial, like people aren't saying certain things, there's a really undercurrent of the hidden side of life. I can be that way because I've lived that life. I've lived that life so much that I don't think that I can actually go in there because this is what they teach. See, there's a guy at the university called Jared Gilbert, and he teaches a paper called Gangs in New Zealand. So I took his paper, and because I was in a gang, you know, well, they call it a gang, call it army, call it whatever. We were. I knew his paper back to front, right? I even gave him knowledge because I was actually there. He spent 4 years trying to anthropologically get into it, but I was actually in it.
Or you're like, oh, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Right.
And he goes, so for anybody that want to go into do research on gangs, he goes, never ask them what they're in jail for. And it will trigger shit, and you don't want to go down that road. And I said, yeah, you can. I said, I can. I said, but you've just got to watch out who you do it for. You've got to be socially intelligent. You can't go into it like an idiot. Because one thing, if I'm in a situation, I said, if I'm in a situation and someone's been to jail and that, and I'll want to know what you have. That's being seen in that, it's like, yeah. But just stuff like that. Go down rabbit hole. But yeah.
Anything else you remember that because again I don't want to ask anything just for the sake of asking it now because I feel like we had a great natural conversation.
No, I feel like I like having conversations like this because and I know sometimes when I speak to people, because a lot of people like to keep things small, like, oh, let's just talk about what can we do tomorrow or this or that. I like to have, I like to bounce ideas, have an ideas sort of mind. Like I had this saying, another saying, small minds talk about people, average minds discuss events, but great minds have ideas. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it's something I try to live by because I don't really like speaking about people unless it's in a positive way. Like, oh, David Beckham's got a tattoo. I don't like sitting around gossiping.
No, I don't.
I see gossip as a social murder type of thing, like,
Yeah.
and people try, and it's so hideous. It's such a hideous thing. And I try to stay away from conversations that I can see would lead me into traps. Yeah, the traps of being stuck in your own,
Yeah.
because people speaking to you and they come at me like a lot of times people dump your stuff on you. You
Mm.
know what I mean? They
Yeah,
they come up to
definitely.
you and they'll be like, "Oh, like I was just yesterday, had this shit day, and Monday," and then they'll just walk away. They feel better. You've got all that bad energy, and now you're gonna have to go perpetuate it. And
Yeah.
and you're already unaware of it. They're like, now they feel like shit. Now we're gonna go drink a energy drink, and now they feel even worse. And now they're gonna go and get angry at someone, and you know. So yeah, but I think good conversation.
It really has been. Thank you again so much for doing it.
No,
Um,
thank you.
and just thinking about what we talked about, I always would love to put some kind of way for the audience to get in touch with you. So we talked about your research papers. Is there a way for people to still find them online?
Yeah, yep. There is. So
If you have a link, I could like later when I publish the episode, I can just put it
yeah,
in the
yeah,
description.
yeah, yep.
So if we do that, that'd be
And
perfect.
I've got like I've got like Instagram tattoo page and all that, so I can get
Yeah,
that.
that was the second thing I wanted to ask about is the tattoo artist
Yeah.
part. So if you have that as well, then we can link both of those things in there. I don't know if there's any other things that people can check out of.
No, it's just yeah, that's my my profile of my tattoos, and
Yeah.
yeah, my research papers. It's basically all. But yeah,
Well, I mean, it's a lot you got. Like some people have way
yeah,
less.
yeah,
So no, this research papers was basically for me because I would love to read them at some
yeah,
point.
yeah,
But yeah, the tattoo artist thing is definitely something that is probably interesting for more
yeah.
people. So
And
yeah, I'd love to.
it's good in New Zealand, like multi art. I do a lot of art so there's a lot of that in there, and stories, like I tell the story on it. So it's good.
Yeah, I'd love to share all these things, and then people can check you out.
Yeah,
Great.
sweet.
So again, thank you very much, and have a lovely evening.
Thanks. Cheers, Mike.
Thanks.